Well, hello, and welcome to Opal City Confidential, a Starman podcast, episode 45. Hey, I'm excited to talk about this because it's Will Payne Starman, and you've heard me get more and more excited every time I cover these issues. And we're covering issues 19 and 20. So we're going to jump to Mike's Amazing World because I'm going to give you some of the vital statistics of this comic, and then I'm going to give you my take on it. Okay, this comic was published on January 2nd, 1990. Cover date, February 1990. Editor, Brian Michael Augustin. This issue is titled Heavy Artillery. It has a pretty good Tom Lyle cover. It's Tom Lyle beating up on this guy in a suit of armor. It has Tom Lyle beating... No, it has Will Payton, the Starman, beating up on this armor. It's a standard cover of the 1990s. I really am enjoying Tom Lyle's art more and more. As we covered the series, I know him for other things. Robin, I think it was a Robin series he did that I read, and I liked him. I appreciated his talent. You know, it wasn't someone, ooh, it's a Tom Lyle book, I'm going to run and get it. I mean, not every artist is that for you. But I've been reading this, as I've said, his art's getting better and better. And it's just been, it's a good cover. It's not the greatest cover in the world, but it's a good cover. This issue, again, was written by Roger Stern. Woohoo. Pencils, Tom Lyle. Inks, Scott Hanna. Scott Hanna's inks are, mwah. I like a good inker. I think Mr. Hanna is perfect for Tom Lyle. And that's a great thing about kind of the old method of pencil or inker, which I think was it not a necessary thing, but I think it added to comics, and I miss it, and I talk about this all the time, so I'm going to shut up. So we're going to go on to who is lettered by Robert M. Pinaha and colors by Carl Gafford. Main characters starting the villain again. We get to see Harold Melrose. We have last time we saw him was issue 12, and we'll see him next issue. Duncan and Carl Prescott and Thomas Jared, who will play Artillery, which is the name of this kind of iron hero. So I don't know. I mean, I'm learning this all as I go. This is kind of great. These are all new characters to me. Mike's Amazing World. This has a great synopsis, and we're going to use it. Harold Melrose has been released from federal custody in order to assist with the development of a battlesuit for the military. When the battlesuit, codenamed Artillery, is ready for testing, Melrose sends the pilot, Jared, to Phoenix. There, Artillery battles Starman and shoots down 2 civil defense planes. Starman eventually takes down his armored opponent and learns that Melrose behind the attack. He leaves Jared in custody of the Mexican authorities before returning home. Unbeknownst to Starman, some ordnance from Artillery has sparked a forest fire. Boom, boom, boom. I like this issue. It was, we're still dealing with Will telling his ma that he is Starman and finding out that he told the ex-husband, Will's now deceased father, first. I've only been married for a short period of time. I got married very late in life, but I am a child of divorce, as a lot of us were in the late 70s, early 80s, in this wave of divorces. And anger at parents and spouses' anger at each other is a dynamic, and how to keep the kids out. Even if it's an adult kid, like Will, how is your interaction with one parent compared to the next? And Will thing's an extreme. He walked out. My parents just divorced. And there was a dynamic. My mom had treated her divorce with my dad, with us, at one way, and my father the other. But I was lucky one parent didn't take sides, and sometimes the other parent did. And sometimes that anger that they had for the spouse comes out on the kids, the children, and she feels hurt. Will's mom feels really hurt, and it's thrown her grown son out of the house. But this is a tight-knit family that they still live a life, so it's a big deal. So that I kind of like that. I like that we're seeing this. I know it's the soap opera part of comics and Bronze Age comics that some people don't have. I think it works because we're seeing Will develop as a person and as a hero, and it's why I like the next Starman series is Will's journey with being a hero, and what is a hero, and what is a person who steps up. A hero can be some small thing and a big thing. In comic books, it's big, giant, grandiose thing with sparkly color costumes and giant monsters. But we're seeing Will deal with this, and then we get Melrose back, and he's a good villain for Starman. He is. I'm liking him. He's not, he's kind of. I'm gonna be blunt. I think he's kind of fucking inept. He's not the best. He is just such a right-wing douchebag, just to be a right-wing douchebag. Not even to be like conservative versus liberal or right-left in the traditional sense, but just that he is a douchebag. But he's not the great. I mean, but I do like him. But he's not Lex Luthor. He's just kind of, he's just kind of incompetent. And these two guys have hired him, and he builds a set of armor because scientists in superhero comics are experts in all science. So it's working well, and you get to see Will's gonna get a place with his buddy Phil. Not the best move. It looks like a pigsty. Jane and him talk about his mom. You see that. You see. Will and Carol, he's working for Carol, and he's gonna screw it up, folks. You can see it. I smell Peter Parker moment. You see Artillery working on his armor. I mean, I do like the art. The colors, I want to talk about colors and Carl Gafford's colors. Since I'm reading a lot on some stuff on the app, I'm reading some stuff on remastered stuff in Omnibus, but this I am reading in its original floppy format. I bought a complete run of this during the pandemic because I'd never read it, and I thought I needed to read it. And I got it for like $60, a complete run. And then I bought the Eclipso stuff at the end of his era as a hero. And I'm glad I did. I'm really enjoying it. And I want to talk about these 80s, or these are 90s colors at this point. This is an era where they had changed the color process a little bit. This is post-Crisis. If you ever see Crisis in its original printing, the yellow is really yellow. It bleeds through the paper. It's so yellow. And Who's Who, I think, and they kind of mimicked that in the Who's Who omnibus. But this is where they've kind of got it under control. But I forget that the color palette in comics back here was more limited. It's not as limited, say, 20 years earlier, but it's more limited in what they can do. Seeing the little dots in their face from the flesh tone ink. But I really do like it. It's some weird color schemes sometimes. I think it's just they're trying to, there's no detail in the background. Like I'm looking at page 9 here, and the robot's in a blue, the artillery is like a blue-silver color spectrum. The plants in South America are just a green cutout, and then the sky is just a solid blue. The smoke is kind of pinkish. The ray beam is orange and yellow, and the metal is brown. I mean, it's just, but they're solids. There's just not a lot of range, I think. But I do like that they're trying, and it's seeing these late 80s, early 90s clothes. I think Tom Lyle gets the clothes pretty accurate for the time. A yellow tie, yeah. Will's wearing a yellow tie and an orange striped shirt. There's a lot of pastels. Carol's wearing a lot of pastels in the 80s, and stuff like that. But it's working. And I never really thought I'd come to like the yellow and purple costume, but I really kind of do. I think I really have started to like it as I've grown with the comic and as the art is just gotten into firing all cylinders. But then we get the battle. We got, artillery shoots down some civil defense. I don't know why Mike's Amazing World calls them civil defense planes. We do not have civil defense planes. We had National Guard aircraft. And even in the 90s, it had no longer been called civil defense. Unless maybe in Arizona, it is called civil defense. I don't know that. I should have Googled that. Here, I live in Virginia. We call it the National Guard. So it's a great battle scene. I mean, you're getting your, what is these were $1. Oh my God, the comic had gone up to $1. But artillery is your basic. I think he's probably a one and done villain. kind of generic, but it's a good fight scene. It goes on a few pages. Morgan, what is it? Duncan and Carl, Melrose's new bosses. They're not real happy. Because Melrose has used the armor to try to get revenge on Starman, and it's foiled their plans. But as it said in the thing, Starman saved the day, but Starman's got other things to worry about. He's got to get back to Phoenix. Here's what his thought balloons near the end of the last page of the story. Got to get back to Phoenix. I didn't see where that second jet crashed. Maybe I may be needed. Carol won't be any too happy with me, but that can't be helped. I'll make it up to her somehow. This is driving me crazy. How did Melrose get loose? But overall, it's a fun comic. It was a good read. I was more interested in what was happening to Will as a person than I was the Melrose artillery bad guys. I mean, you got to have your bad guys. So sometimes in Silver Age comics, I'm more interested in the soap opera part, the interpersonal relationship parts of an issue, than I am the action, because I sometimes think when it's written well, and I think Roger Stern writes that kind of even mix that I like, well, is that you may have a one-and-done villain, or, the main bad guy just having a little battle, or his flunk having a little battle with the hero, but you focus more on the hero. And that builds to the climax of the story, and not only, if you're doing it well, like I think Roger Stern is doing well, those little moments and those shared things where it's little soap opera, little action, little soap opera, little action. It's more soap opera than action. It's more action than soap opera going. But when you get to the final end of a big story, I think the payoff is better, because not only has he won the battle with the bad guy, but whatever he's going through comes to a head. And you get to see what makes Will. And that's what I'm really liking about these issues, and how this stuff's going along. So let's move on to Starman number 20, which was published on the 30th of January 1990. Again, Brian Michael Augustin, editor. This one has a pretty good Tom Lyle cover too. It's Starman helping fight a forest fire, and he's flying toward the center. I like the logo. In this way, it's a solid blue. It's a solid white trimmed in solid blue. We have a different inker this issue, which is cool on the inside. But it's a pretty good cover. Again, this one's called Firefly. It's a 22-pager written by the amazing Roger Stern, penciled by Tom Lyle, inked by Carlos Garzon, whose inks I like normally, always, pretty much. Letter of Robert M. Penaha, and more colors by the Mr. Carl Gafford. We've got all of the supporting cast in this. Kitty Faulkner's in it. I love Kitty. Rampage. Is it Rampage? Yes. Jane, Marie, Peyton, Carol, and Phil. Again, the four baddies are the three mercenaries and Mr. Melrose. Jared, this is his last appearance. Same with... Wow. This is the last appearance of all four of them. Oh, man, that's kind of disappointing. We're not going to see Melrose again. Boo. I don't like that. Synopsis of this one is, after the battle with artillery, Starman is tested by Dr. Faulkner to discover more about his powers. He then returns to his job. His boss, Carol Simon, is furious at him for leaving without notice. After working a full day, he learns about a nearby forest fire. Starman spends 2 full days assisting crews to fight and contain the fire. He also learns that it was started by ordnance from artillery. Will's absence has not gone unnoticed. Carol's has lost an account due to his lack of results. Ooh. I always like a comic that the splash page is a superhero sitting being tested or tortured in a machine. Kitty's wearing her patented Star Lab spacesuit thing, the thing she wore when she became Rampage. I like her as a secondary character. I like that she goes from a bad guy and burns Superman her. I don't know who created Rampage, Kitty Faulkner, but I like her. I like her as a secondary. I think he needs a scientist because he's He's a writer, copy editor. He's not a scientist. And the average guy that becomes a superhero, kind of thing. I think that's kind of why I like him. Maybe that he's just an average person who became a hero, and is just doing it because it's the right thing to do. Those are more interesting heroes to me. And he's concerned about Dr. Polaris, what he did to him a few issues back, and how he's lost his sense of smell, and she's telling him things. She goes like, he's noticed a lot of changes. She says your organs work totally different ways, and then goes after being, and he's talking about like the lack of smell. He's concerned that he's changing. He's not human anymore. It's becoming part of the story. After being smashed through a roof of a building, I might expect to feel stunned, but I didn't. I felt more drugged. And Kitty goes, I'm going to call it Dr. Faulkner. I'm not going to call it Kitty. Dr. Faulkner says, not surprising, from what I've been able to determine, your brain's nerve impulses are now carried by a form of highly ionized plasma. When Polaris got you within his powerful magnetic field, the blast must have scrambled those plasma pulses, hence fuzzy-headed feeling. But you recovered to help Power Girl defeat Polaris. Despite his continued attacks, suggests your new brain somehow adapted to the intense field effect. And then his response, but if I'm so blasted adaptable, why is my sense of smell failing instead of improving? And her response is, there's no physical reason just of such a loss. However, under emotional stress, your brain might literally withdraw from some sensory functions. And it's a trauma. And he goes, it's not a message. You're getting emotional trauma, personal problems, loved one. And he thinks to himself, Dad, and then says, yeah, I have. So I lost my sense of smell for good. And then she goes, wake up and smell the coffee, and puts coffee on his nose. And he goes, I can smell it now. So she kind of, like hiccups, scared it out of him. But they have a nice conversation about being Starman, and he's having problems, and because she's been changed to have powers given to her, she understands, and she just reassures him. It's a nice little moment. We cut to the forest. Tonto. Oh, please tell me there's not a real park called Tonto National Forest. All right, folks, I paused there for a second. There is the Tonto National Forest. It compensates 2,870,200 acres. It is the largest of the 6 national forests in Arizona, and it's the largest national forest in the United States. I live near the George Washington National Forest. Love it. It's it's in the Shenandoah Mountains, and it is absolutely the most beautiful place on this fucking planet, in my opinion. So it had a wildfire in June 2020. That's neat. I'm kind of scrolling through the history. I want to see what it's named after. That's why I stopped, because I would really, if they named it after damn Tonto from the Lone Ranger, I'd be incredibly kind of oogied out. Tonto National Forest Reserve was established on October 3rd, 1905 by the United States General Land Office. In 1906, the forest reserves were transferred to the U.S. Forest Service. In August 1907, Tonto became a national forest. On July 13th, 1908, the Pinole Mountains National Forest was added along with other lands. And on July 1st, 1908, Black Mesa National Forest and other lands were added. And on July 1st, 1953, part of the Crook National Forest was added. Say what it was named after? Maybe that is Tonto I only know it from Lone Ranger. That is sad. So, doing another search, because I kind of want to figure this out as a little sidebar. So we'll get back. I may get back to this, but it was just kind of weird. Okay, I found it. Tonto Apache is one of the different nations of Apaches. It's more than one Apache group of Apaches. So that's what it is, and that's where it comes from. That is good to know. It is either Tonto Apache, Comanche, or Powhatan, which is good. We're growing up in Virginia, up in Northern Virginia. We lived near the Potomac, or Potomac, which is the Indian name. Powhatan are the native Indians to Virginia. Powhatan down by that's Pocahontas, and around Jamestown, and then when they moved up the river to a place called Henricus, which is now the city of Richmond, where I live. And so, okay, that makes a little sense. Okay, little sidebar, little history, and I hope it wasn't too boring, but I just found it all of a sudden, so I wanted to talk about it because I'm the host and I get to decide. But that's cool. They're using real places in Arizona. My stepmother lives in Arizona, and my father lived out there the last couple decades of his life, and he loved it. And it's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. The first time I went to Arizona to visit him, we drove from Scottsdale up to the Grand Canyon. It was in May, and I saw desert and snow in the same drive. I got to go to the Grand Canyon with my dad. I got as close as I could. My fear of heights kind of, whoa, baby, no, you ain't going no closer. But it was wonderful. It's beautiful out there. I don't know if I could live out there, because if I did, I think I'd want to live closer to the Grand Canyon. And I know that's isolated. I'm a city boy, and I love cities. Phoenix isn't, it's one of those flat cities that spread out. It's not like an East Coast city, which is, I don't know. It just, when I'm there, I'm mostly in Scottsdale. But I'm glad they're using real places, and then not just making crap up. So that was good. Good homework there, Roger. Roger's a Canadian, if I'm not mistaken. But it's great. You got Melrose and his buddies. They fly down to Mexico to break Jared out, killing some guards and killing Jared. Because, yeah, he's in the cell and they don't want him squealing. It's pretty violent for a comic. There's a lot of killing in this one. And it's code? Is comic code gone yet? No, it's still approved by the comic code. We get to see Jane and Marie talk. They're watching. Well, we cut back to them, and the news is talking about the fight between the mercenary and Starman, and Marie turns the TV off, and Jane goes, "Mom, I was listening to that. Will fought like crazy to subdue that creep. Don't you want to?" And Marie goes, "No. If my only son has to play hero, that's his business. I'd rather not hear about the gory details." And Jane responds, "Well, I wonder if he's heard the latest. Maybe I should give him a call." And Marie goes, Marie Peyton, isn't it bad enough that your brother had to fight that thing?" And Jane corrects her. "You still worry about him!" Exclamation point. "Supersonic robots, jets, blown up people, killed by God knows who. Yes, I worry, don't you?" "Of course I do." And then she thinks to herself, "But I'm not the one who threw him out of the house. Maybe, just maybe, there's hope for this family yet." Yay for the soap opera. Yay, yay, yay. It's working for me, people. Will comes back. And Carol gives him a hard time because he's screwing up his job. And then the fire started by the artillery. The Rangers who at the reserve have started battling, and you see the firefighters jumping down. Will goes into the break room. He gets home or gets back to Phil's place, sees the news about the fire, and he's thinking, he's just listening to the news. Let's see. Oh, Metropolis, a judge turned down a motion to dismissal and charges against former Galaxy Communication executive Morgan Edge. Edge is recuperating from heart surgery. I don't know what that's. Harold Melrose. Melrose is in a mental institution. The one in the hospital is not Melrose. Okay, yeah, I forgot that part. And he hears about the fire. He hears about Jared being killed, and then he hears about the fire. He puts on the costume, comes on. That was a good, I read this, and it's kind of like, this part didn't stick. That's terrible, Ross, a bad comic reader. But no, it's a little bit of, it's 2 pages of talkie, telling you what's going on in Metropolis, what's going on with Melrose, that the Melrose and Mental Institution is fake, that Jared is dead, and now the fire, and he's thinking, So he heads out there to help. He starts scooping up water, carrying this giant metal bucket. He lifts a bulldozer out of the mud, takes the front off it and helps them dig the thing. We cut away, and Carol's looking for Will and calls and wakes up Phil, but Phil says he's not there. And we just see over the next 2 days, and that's in one page, him saving houses, him helping them drop water, him rescuing firefighters, and everybody's happy. And they found the source of the fire, and it was one of the bombs from Jared, and he feels like, crap, I did that. That's me. We cut to a mall, a Radio Shack, and everybody's watching the news and the TV, that old trope, watching through the shop windows. That doesn't happen well, you know what? Maybe people watch news in like Walmart or Target and stuff when something big's happening. We get to it, and there are people listening to it. Good news this morning from Arizona. The Tonto Forest Fire is now history. Fire crews began packing up after a week of battling the blaze. And then the crowds. Listen, Joey, newsman goes, crew chiefs greatly praise the contribution made by Starman, who spent the day on the scene. It was one of the spies. I worked on one of them crews when I was younger. We never need any flying hotshots to do our job. Another guy goes, betcha he started that fire just to make himself look good. A mom, I think it's a mom and a kid. I don't believe that. Starman, he wouldn't. An old man goes, maybe. An older lady goes, but seems to me there's been an awful lot of strangers around these parts since he showed up. Never did care for super folk. Oh, ain't you? They're just plain trouble. Uh-oh. And then we see Carol come into the office. Any messages from Will and Juanita, the secretary, says no, and she goes, doesn't matter, we lost the account anyway. Looking at the letters pages before we go on. Anybody famous? You get less famous ones in these later years. Unless that's Jim Kelly, not a Joe Kelly. Yeah. And next month, caption from Katie Main, who's a letter page editor. Will's lack of attention at work causes Carol to make a final decision regarding his employment, while Will's efforts at Starman backfire, forcing him to evaluate whether the means justify the end. See you in 30 days. See you in 30 short ones. I like this comic. Again, it was more... The fire was the action of the piece, because that's what kids buy comics for. Action and heroes and stuff like that. But it was also a lot about Will. Why is Will a hero? How do other people perceive him as a hero? And how it's affecting his family and his friends, which I find interesting. I'm finding Will if I had read this series when it was coming out, and I haven't read all of it, but if my attitude toward it maintains this level of enthusiasm, I think I would have been a little upset with a new Starman so quickly after with Jack. I think I would have still fell in love with Jack. I don't think there's nothing in this universe, the multiverse, anything could ever shake my love of the Jack Knight Starman. Because I'm biased as shit. It is one of the greatest comics. It's my personal favorite solo superhero comic of all time, period, and stop. There's nothing I don't like. And I'm not a big solo guy. Because, look, I do a team-up podcast. And Starman's a legacy book, which is another reason I like it. I really love legacy books. But there are very few runs of solo heroes that I read regularly. The Michelini-Layton Iron Man, religiously. Big chunks of the if I had money the whole time Mark Cornwell was writing Captain America, I would have read every issue. Some Spider-Man here and there, not a lot of it. I like Spider-Man, but I like to read story arcs of Spider-Man. I've never done like FF. I've never done a complete read-through of it. And then Hawkeye stuff is hit or miss, and he's my favorite. But it's more on DC. I read a lot of Green Arrow, especially during Grell, and some after it. Wally's Flash. I read it religiously until I couldn't afford it as a young adult in my 20s and 30s. So I read it pretty religiously from when Wally started up to Wade, and then I jumped in and out of Wade. I think Wally's my Flash. Not up to Wade, but up to John's. I got up to when he brought back Barry. When he brought back Barry I really I was upset. I'm not offense that Barry was back. It's just I think while I'm not interested in Barry. I'm interested in Wally. Kyle Rayner's Green Lantern for a few years, and when John was doing. Well, I'm not going to count John's when he was doing regular Green Lantern, because when he was doing Green Lantern, he was doing all the Green Lanterns. And how was this the star of the book? Oh, and I read Dave Stewart. Read the Lynn Wine, or this Englehart Gibbons Green Lantern. Was that Wine? I read the Dave Gibbons Green Lantern because it was, oh my God, it was so good. So on and off, because I'm more the team guy, and I like the soap opera part, because that's what you get with Roy. It's what you get a little bit with Stan. It's what you get with you get character development stuff, and which is what I'm here for. This one was just a good one. It's neat to see that there's a real forest, and we're moving along. I do not know what's next. I don't even know what the next issue looks like. So I'm gonna bump forward on Mike's Amazing World to look at the cover. Oh, it's a costume hanging off a cactus. We're doing the Spider-Man uniform in the trash can issue. Bingo, got it. I see what's going on. That is cool. I'm saying that's a trope, because how many times has that happened? And then I guess he's out west. I don't know. This is cool. I'm looking forward to see. I've not read these. I have no idea what's coming up next, and I don't read ahead. I do read them like 3 times, because it's every other week, and I haven't done a pause. We're going to be doing a pause on Will coming up in a couple weeks, because, in a couple months, when we get to the Shade miniseries, because what I'm going to do is Dave's going to come on, Dave Steele from Earth 2 Podcast, and we're going to cover the 4-issue Shade miniseries, where it goes in the compendium. He thinks it's an omnibus 3. I think he's right. I've sold my omnibuses except for one to make space and to have money to buy more comics. So I'm kind of transferring things around. But I enjoyed these. These are fun. If you're reading along, please let me know. I got a nice letter from a gentleman, and I want to kind of read that. So we're going to pause here for a second, and I'm going to read you this lovely letter. So, I got a letter. I don't always check my Stop Let's Team Up email, and that's sad, because I've been asking for people to post thing, and because I get so little email, I got kind of jaded, and I stopped kind of looking. But Ben Sherman, who has been liking stuff, I recognize the name. He's a new follower. He sent me a nice letter on January 7th, and I didn't see it until yesterday, which was January 17th, 10 days. Sorry, Ben, I'm a dumbass. And it says here, "Hi, Ross. I just discovered you a few weeks ago when I was listening to an old episode of Billy's World on Fire show. I checked out SLTU and really like the way you do your podcast, and you have several of the same passions I do, including the Legion of Superheroes, Jack Knight, Starman, All-Star Squadron, and Doctor Who. I'm delighted that you are much more knowledgeable and well-read than I am. I'm just old, Ben. It's just a side effect of age and being an old comic nerd. I'm now working on my way through your Legion podcast and the Opal City Confidential from the beginning, trying to catch up as quickly as I can. This will be my second time doing a Legion read-through as best as I can. It can be spotty if you don't have everything. I'll get a ways before that, but I'm not looking forward to their stuff I don't have now. It's sad. As best I can from the beginning. My first time around, I was helped considerably by consulting the Legion of Super Bloggers blog, the Legion Omnicron website, Tom Beerbaum, It's Okay, I'm a Senator, and Comics Archaeology blog. Never heard of that last one. I'll have to check it out. But with all that, I'm really appreciating your thoughts and insights. Looking forward to continuing through your series, Ben." Thank you, Ben. I really appreciate the support. I really appreciate the letter. And I've jumped in and out of super bloggers and like what they have to say and their take on things. Everybody's different. Their take's a little different than mine at times. Sometimes it's right spot on. I have not checked the Omnicron, but a few times. Jimbo has talked to me about some of these. I am going to check out Comics Archaeology, but I need to probably, because I'm not doing the Legion ones as regularly as I would hope to. Work, life interfere. I'm off today because I had some teeth removed yesterday, and I got my new lower partial plate, which is nice because now I have a full set of teeth again and I can chew. But I'm going to do some recording. So I'm recording this and posting it this day. This, you folks, if you listen to us the day it drops, it's the day it was done on the 18th of January, 24. But I'm going to probably, after I post this, have a little something to eat, and then record a Legion episode, and I'm going to cover the last 4 Action Comics, all 4 issues drawn by George Tuska. The name of the episode will be the George Tuska era, because I just kind of want to pull the Band-Aid off of the Action run. And if you, I might have kind of not bashed it, but said how unengaged I was with it when me and Jim were talking Legion and Star Trek. Because then I get to move on to the Cockrum. Well, they aren't. Excuse me, these aren't the last 4 issues of Action. They're the Force 4, the Superboy backup. But then I get to go into Dave Cockrum, and then Cockrum and Negrell, and then into also Shooter comes back as a writer. Levitz gets his first run, and then you get a bunch of stuff by Jerry Conway and other people. And then eventually, one day, I will get to probably my favorite Legionnaire, which starts about the beginning of the Black Darkness saga. Yeah, that would be kind of right before that is really my sweet spot. Really, really, when Pat Broderick's drawing it, and then Giffin's doing the backup, and then Giffen is doing the front, and then Broderick's doing the backup, and then it becomes a Levitz Giffen co-created book, and I think it just sings for the most part all the way until the end of the Magic Order. And I'm looking forward to that. But back to Bill. Bill, great letter. Please jump on. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on if you've read this Starman and what you think of it in comparison to Jack. Because I like to hear other people's takes. I don't think there is an answer art. There is no winner in art. There is just likes and dislikes, and everyone's is a little different. I prefer Bronze Age and Silver Age, Bronze Age, and some Modern Age. Can be a little bit of crank when it comes to more modern comics because I have issues in the way they tell stories, but it's a different storytelling and different audience, but I'm also a very big proponent of what I want to say with what DC. I'm going to praise them on one thing is they're diversifying some of their storytelling. The young YA illustrated novels. I don't care that they're changing characters. I think this medium cannot just be for older guys, not just white guys, but older men. It needs, every generation, it needs to reinvent itself. Stan did that, as much people love Stan or bash Stan. He changed comics by putting the soap opera in and really leaning into that. And then other people had to emulate him. And then you have ups and downs, man. I think there's very little in the early 90s that I like except for Jack Knight, Starman. But there's stuff. I still bought a bunch of comics. But it changes. The medium changes. It needs to change. And I think it needs to embrace a lot more. I think the medium embracing manga and manga style artists and people who grew up reading manga, if I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, watching them take that influence because Roy based his comics, Roy Thomas, he read Gardner Fox, so he wrote, you can see a little bit of Gardner Fox in his stuff. And then people who read Roy, and then people who read the person after, and people emulated Kirby because Kirby innovated so much in the 60s. Byrne, Perez, they are influenced by that, and then people are influenced by them. And then you had the Image generation of artists and how they took it to another level, and then people have grown from them. It's all this one big avalanche of pop culture cascading down the mountain, picking up new stuff and adding to it. And that's a good thing. That I think I think Warner Brothers is a mess. I think the guy that owns it I don't think he understands what he owns because he's not a creative person. That's one thing. But I do kind of like what DC's doing with the Dawn of DC. They're reintroducing characters in short doses. I think the Doom Patrol was a huge success. I'm reading Green Arrow, and it got promoted to regular series. I thought, I know they have their regular books, but they're trying new stuff in small doses, and I think that is a great way to do it. They had that stuff, I can't remember what it was, but Vigil was part of it, and it was the only one of those I really liked. I thought the others were engaging, but they weren't for me. But I really liked Vigil because it was a little more like Suicide Squad, Ostrander kind of comic, so that kind of hit a nerve, and I was all in. But I kind of like what they're doing. I kind of like what we're doing. I wish, certain books would be on time. I haven't read The Hawk Girl. I'm going to read that on the app. I'm cutting back books. So, but I'm enjoying what they're doing, and I want to give them credit for that, is expanding it. And I want to kind of talk about that. That was an extra 10 minutes on this. And it's not Starman, but I kind of like how they're trying to build an audience, because I'm reading two Starmen, and one is late 80s or whenever these were, late 80s, early 90s, and one is late 90s, early 2000s. And there's a huge difference in their storytelling. One is, a little more traditional Silver Age, and one's a little more. I don't want to even say Starman is. It's a little deeper, and it's more. It's this. I always considered the Jack one kind of a hybrid between regular DC and Vertigo, because it had a little bit more to it, or at least I feel it does. But now that I'm reading this one, I'm loving it. Enough of me rambling. We're going to move on, and I'm going to say goodbye. Please check out our two podcasts. They're doing some great omnibus. They do great stuff. I've been on. Dave's been on. Please check out Fantastic Comic Fan. Ron's does a great show. Billy D, Magazine and Monsters. I'm not a big horror guy, but I jump in and out of there and listen to him talk about horror movies, and I actually watch some Hammer movies. A Dracula movie. Oh, The Mummy. No, I watched The Mummy. I'd never watched a Hammer Mummy movie, and it blew my mind. It was so good, and that's all due to Billy. His World on Fire, I get to jump in and out of that. I had the honor. I was a big cheerleader for it. I listened every week and posted every week, and then Billy was very kind to let me come on and talk Fate Origin, I think it was the first one, and then I could been on and been able to meet Sean and Paul Hicks and everybody else on that show. Marty, just a blast. Listen to Billy. He's a great host, and he just loves comics. And I can't wait to have him back on here. So check all that. And be safe, be smart, be kind to one another. Read some comics.